This is Michelle Hughes at Ageless and Timeless. Today we have a very special guest. His name is Dave Elliot, and he's going to be talking to us about a subject that I think all of us have had interest in at one time or another, and that is finding love. So Dave, welcome to Ageless and Timeless. You have a subject matter that we want to hear as much as possible about in our time today, and if we run out of time, we'll have you come back. So
Sounds great.
let's take a
Great to be
deep
here.
dive.
Thank you.
Let's take a deep dive with you. Okay, my
Okay.
first thought is because navigating the modern world of the internet today regarding finding Ms. or Mr. Right is such a difficult challenge. Can you give us some secret code, secret sauce to how to accomplish finding the right person in our lives to live our lives in happiness for the rest of our lives on the internet?
That's a tall order in one question. So here, let me say this. I think that relationships are an incredible vehicle for our own personal development. And I think you're going to end up doing it whether you want to do it or whether you don't, because other people are going to bring lessons that you need if you don't opt in and do it on your own. My recommendation, and the reason why I've been doing this for 11 years and helping people to do their own personal development, is because I want them to develop and be in a great place so that they can come and bring the best of them into relationship and interact with other people. And then the other part of your question was about how you can, I think it's about knowing your own value first and being really clear on what you bring to the table. I think most people come into dating looking for what they can get rather than kind of what they can give. And I think someone who's done some personal development has probably done a little bit more of a deep dive and is real clear on what they bring as well. And it's it's a partnership. It works for both parties. So I think that's an important part of it. Just doing that work yourself and coming to it whole and complete and feeling like you offer something and bring something to the table that's valuable. And I believe everyone does.
Well, that's a very substantive response, Dave. However, we're dealing with a swipe culture, and
Yes.
people are not always going for the deeper essence of who we are. They're looking for something more superficial. And it's not that I want to be negative, because I always like to look at things in a positive way. So I'm just trying to find the positive spin on the swipe culture so that we can navigate these waters with success and still be part of what is the current modality. So maybe comment on that for a moment.
So yeah, I think the swipe culture offers, like, I look at everything, it's a sword that cuts both ways, right? There's great opportunities with swipe culture, with online dating, with the world is flat, and now we can meet people we ordinarily never would have met in the old days. In the older days, you would meet people who you were in proximity with. You maybe met them in an area, bar or restaurant, somewhere where you were, or a place where you had regular proximity. The beautiful thing about the internet and the digital age is it opens up the world, and we can meet a lot more people. And of course, there's travel, all these other things. The world is a lot smaller now, so there's more choice and there's more opportunity. But I think the downside, as you mentioned, is that I think it can sometimes commoditize people, and it makes it seem a little bit more transactional. And look, that's certainly the downside. And then I think a lot of times the lesson comes there as well. The reason I suggest doing that personal development, because even in a swipe culture, even if someone's swiping, and then they find someone who has clearly done the work and clearly stands out from anyone else you've ever dated, that's the answer, and that's the key. So, look, my motto, my slogan, the thing that my mission statement is, I want to travel the world to touch, move, and inspire people, teach them how to create even more love, peace, and understanding in the world, one person or couple at a time. So
Mm,
I can't get everybody all at once, but I'm out there making a difference.
mm,
And I'm hoping that through vehicles like this, we're going to reach those people, and we're going
mm.
to make more of a conscious shift. And I think that's necessary, especially not just necessary for the big picture and what's possible in humanity, but I think necessary for people to ultimately be successful, even short term versus long term
So,
as well.
so, Dave, what inspired you to become a coach? Is that because of what you just said, your mission about your view about life and what you'd like to achieve?
That's what drives me now, but that's not what got me into it. Like the short answer is what inspired me to become a coach about 20 years ago. My wife at the time came to me and said she didn't want to be married anymore. And that was one of those, there's two kinds of growth. There's evolutionary growth that you grow into slow, and there's revolutionary growth
Mm,
where it shifts everything and it's like, boom.
mm,
So it was painful, as you might expect, and I didn't want to repeat that again. And I realized that there was things about relationships that I didn't really know or understand. And so that sort of introduced me to the idea of this whole thing of personal development. I didn't even know it existed. I didn't know there were experts in this out there. I didn't know there were books you could read. So I threw myself into it and just wanted to learn. And I found along the way I was passionate about it. I loved it. And it was great for me not just to be able to help myself, but then also to have these skills and awarenesses and abilities that I could pass forward and allow be able to serve other people with it. And like I loved my job before. I worked in advertising agencies. I was an artist. I was a writer and a producer. So I loved the whole creative process. I was always using creativity. Now, as a coach, I use the creativity of what I'm learning combined with all my other skills and knowledge. But I'm still using it in a creative vehicle. And I have to say, I loved it before, but I love it even more now because I'm working with amazing people all over the world that I love and appreciate. And I see the greatness in them. So I kind of teach them how to do that as well. And I just can't think of a better way to, you know, live day to day than to serve amazing people all over the globe that I love, from the comfort of my office or, on the road or speaking or teaching or doing something or writing a book. I mean, these things are incredibly rewarding to me. So, I kind of fell into it though. And again, that's what I'm saying earlier about everything is a double-edged sword. Didn't feel good to get divorced. It didn't fill me with confidence knowing that my other friends were not getting divorced, but I was.
mm.
At the same time, I look back now, and it's no dig at her whatsoever. I'm just nothing but grateful because it showed me a passion that I didn't know I had. And so I believe everything comes to serve, and that certainly came to serve, even though it wasn't pleasant at the beginning.
Well, they say out of adversity comes opportunity. And I would
Absolutely.
say that you epitomize that event in your own life, and that you teach that what you most need to learn. And sometimes our greatest teachers are the people that have learned the lessons themselves and are now wanting to share. And it sounds to me like, from what you just described, that is you.
I think so. Yeah, it's they say the two things that inspire that is it's either perspiration or desperation,
Mm-hmm.
and I think I'm in both camps. But probably the desperation was what kicked me off, or the desperation kicked me off, and the perspiration kept me going.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, it's not really working either. I just love what I do because I'm working, like I said, with great people that I admire and respect, and I get to like live vicariously through watching their growth and see them accomplish just incredible things. And I mean, it's incredibly rewarding on a level that I couldn't have known before.
So let's role play for a moment.
Sure.
Let's pretend that I'm one of your new clients. I've just contacted you, and you want to get to know what we're going to be accomplishing together, and defining that in very specific terms. So, what kinds of questions would you ask me? And maybe we could elaborate a little bit from there.
Awesome. Yeah. So usually the first thing I have when I get started with a client, I mean, I do an interview first, ask a bunch of questions, and I want to understand where are we now, where do we want to go, and then basically we're going to fill in the middle and create an action plan so we elegantly, effectively, and efficiently move you towards where you want to be.
Mm.
And so I would ask questions like, well, what is it that you're looking for? Give me 3 examples of what you want to accomplish with this coaching, 3 concrete examples. So what's it going to look like on the other side? I'll ask specific questions like, what's it going to look like? Who's going to be in your life? What, are you going to be engaged? Are you going to be married? Are you going to be deciding what you're going to do, what specifically does it look like? And then I'll ask other questions like, what types of approaches do you prefer? Because my thing is I'm flexible. I want people to get their result. And so like there are some people that want like a cheerleader, kind of just celebrate their victories along the way. I'm totally comfortable with that because I get that. But then there's other people that want someone who's going to push them a little bit more, be more of a taskmaster, or like a drill sergeant, or call them on their step, because some people are just used to that. I can do that too. My thing is I'm flexible. I want you to get the result, and I want to serve people right where they are. So those are a couple of examples of questions, and I'm trying to think. I think look for other areas like low-hanging fruit, like what types of things are you putting up with now? Like what's something that would increase the quality of your life right now? Because I want people to feel the difference right now. I want them to get used to taking steps forward. And as you take a step forward, as you take some kind of action to improve your life in some way, you look back and you're like, wow, I do feel different. And when you feel different, you'll take better action. When you take better action, it creates more potential, you get better results. And then it's a cycle. It's the cycle of success. So it's basically seeing where they are and where they want to be, and then helping them close the gap with a specific, workable, reasonable and steady plan to achieve it, based on their parameters, not mine. So that's the thing. I'm really flexible. It's not my vision for them; it's theirs. So I have to elicit what it is that they want, and helps to get it in their language as well. So that way I can get on board and understand where they are, and along the way we discover what's in the way. Like there might be an awareness that they don't have. So I'll teach them something. Maybe it's about, masculine and feminine energy and how they navigate the world, or what works best and what doesn't work best, or where they're specifically getting hung up based on what they've told me. Or it might be a new skill or a new habit or a new, an action, something that they have to put into practice. Or sometimes it might just be doing some work, getting some clarity. Sometimes people are just they're stuck because it's like they don't see where they are, and when you're in it, you don't see it. So sometimes the third party can sometimes see it. Like this morning, I had a call with a brand new client, and he didn't see or acknowledge that this person he was dating, there are some avoidant and anxious aspects to his partner in her attachment style, and he didn't even know what an attachment style was. So by again bringing that to his attention, giving him an assessment that he could take, and seeing where they line up, where they're not lining up. So now I brought something that's concrete and tangible to his attention. He can now take a look at that and say, now I get it. Now it's not just they can't agree on anything. Now he can define it. And when you can define it, you can understand it. When you can understand it, you can now strategize around it. And as you were saying earlier, like I think that's what Tony Robbins, you were talking about earlier. That's how he describes himself. He considers himself a strategist. He understands human motivational psychology really well at a deep level, why people do what they do over and over again. And he helps first bring it to an awareness, and then bring it to a strategy and to put it into action. So yeah, I do the same thing, and my clients get pretty amazing results.
So if you were going to list 5 bullet points for us that are the keys to finding a relationship that is fulfilling and let's say just ideal, what would the 5 key ingredients be that you would put on that list?
Okay. I would say number 1 has got to be clarity. Like I said, most people, I think, have some blind spots in what they want, what they bring to the table, what they offer. So I think clarity is just key. Knowing what you want, why you want it, what you're willing to do to get it. Like those things are huge. That might be 3 bullet points in itself. But let's just start with clarity. Then I think Second thing I would say is about an action plan. Again, figure out where you are, where you want to be, and then how are you going to get there, and start to put it in motion. Like, understand what type of partner you're looking for. And then it's, because I have a background in advertising and marketing too, I look at it as kind of a marketing plan. So if I'm interested in X person, this type of person, where does that person go? Where is that person? Where might they be likely to be found? What are they interested in? So I kind of look at it from that standpoint as well. You know, put yourself in proximity to greatness, and great things happen. You got to, again, but that comes from clarity. That comes from being decisive and strategic and knowing what you want, and just looking for it, being proactive, taking action. And then I would say, you know, along the way, you're doing your own work as well, healing any unresolved wounds. My most recent book is all about that. And again, those are wounds that you probably don't even know about, but they come back. They show up in our behaviors. They show up in our past experiences. They show up in our frustrations. They show up in our past quote unquote failures or struggles. And so those are the things that you want to be working on your own stuff, bringing it into view so that you can heal it. Then I think you want to, once you meet that person, you want to get really clear about how you're showing up. Because again, it's about a partnership. It's about a mutually beneficial partnership where each person looks after and takes care of the other, and you start to just come from the place of, what can I do for my partner? How can I make their life better, easier, more fulfilled? And again, that comes from clarity. Again, what does it look like when your life is fulfilled? Most people, if I ask that question, they have no idea. So it's really it's like, you know, you can't hit a target if you don't see it. I used to do this demonstration for kids. I would go in and speak to them in their classes about deciding what they want around the 8th grade, and focusing on what classes they want. And I did a demonstration once where I will do a bullseye on the chalkboard, and then I would take the eraser and I would step back and I'd say, here's the thing, anytime you can see a goal, you know what it is, you can easily hit it. And I would throw the eraser and I'd pretty much dead center of the bullseye because I was only a couple of feet away. And then I walked out towards them and I said, but if you don't know what the goal is, you have no idea where the goal is, you have no idea what it looks like, it's a total crapshoot. And I just threw it over my shoulder. And I not only missed it planning to, I hit the clock on the wall and knocked the clock down and broke the clock in front of this classroom. And all the kids were laughing. They thought it was hysterical. And it was like, I didn't mean to do that, but that's maybe the best example ever of what happens when you don't know your target, you don't have it in view, and you're going to take you can take a million shots and you're most likely not going to ever hit it because you don't know what you're aiming for.
Right. That's saying, if you don't know where you're going, how do you know when you get there?
And any road will take you.
And
too.
Any road will take you. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So John Gray wrote a classic book, Men Are from Mars, Women Are from Venus. And when he wrote that book, you know, he happens to be my neighbor in Mill Valley. I live in Tiburon. He lives in Mill Valley. They're adjacent towns. So not that has anything to do with it, but I always felt like I'd love to go to his house one day and just brainstorm with him, because it came at a time for me when I was trying to find commonalities between men and women in business. As a pioneering woman, I didn't want to be looked at or perceived as something unique and different than the men that I was working in the boardroom with, if you know what I'm saying. I wanted there to be more commonality. So I was a little bit, I must admit, put off by that book at the beginning. Then I realized over time what he was really trying to accomplish. I'm curious to know what you think of that book and whether you use his teachings in your work.
John is probably one of the most successful authors in the entire relationship space.
True.
I give him total credit.
Right.
I appreciate what he's done. I know that literally millions of people have learned from him.
That's right.
He is one of the people. I've definitely read his work and done some of his stuff. I haven't ever worked with him in person, although I have friends who have, and I've heard really great things about it. But I've worked with some other mentors who I think resonate with me a little bit more. But again, I don't have anything bad to say about John's work. I think it's excellent. I've just been exposed to other things in addition. I think his work on helping people to understand the difference, I wouldn't have framed it that way, but the whole Mars and Venus thing, for which he was famous. But it definitely made the point. It made the point that we literally are sort of two different planets when it comes to how we navigate the world, what things mean. For my purposes, more like masculine energy is more single focus, outcome driven, analytical and logical in nature, because that's how it navigates the world. Whereas the feminine energy navigates more from emotion and gut and how things feel. That's why the woman's intuition is so incredible when it comes to navigating. Her number one need is to feel safe, and so that dictates a lot of things. And I think also a lot of times when we run into trouble in our relationships, it's because either or both of us have vacated our basic nature. Meaning, like in a situation like you were talking about, in order to be successful, maybe someone who is core feminine is maybe using her masculine energy too much, because it does work and she is rewarded for it again and again and again. But it also causes other unintended problems. There's nothing wrong, and let me be clear, there's nothing wrong with either energy. They're both great and perfect. There is a time for masculine energy. There's a time for feminine energy. It's essentially like using the right tool for the right job. You don't want to use a hammer for a screwdriver. It's just not going to work. You'll just beat up everything that you're trying to do. It requires precision. And the example that I give too is like, my core is masculine. I'm a man. Most of my clients are women. And if I am in hardcore masculine, single focus, solving problems, fixing it, and not able to connect with her, open her up, make her feel safe, understood, appreciated, and then serve her, I will be no good at that. So a lot of my coaching starts in feminine and then moves to masculine as we get to a structure and as we get to problem solving. But it has to start in that place where we build connections, where it's about nurturing. Nurturing is absolutely feminine. But I do that as well. And so I think the ideal is for all of us, both masculine and feminine, to master the full range of emotion, the full range of behaviors, full range of strategies, and use the right tool for the right job. So does that make sense?
Absolutely. And so it's always remarkable to me to see a male coach who has been able to adopt the yin and the yang in his teachings, because that is completely what you have just said, that connection between the masculine and the feminine, in the sense that your marketplace is primarily feminine. So it takes a lot, I think, for you to make that transformation and to understand both sides, because well, you know what it's all about because you've had to live it. So,
Yes,
what would you say is, can you talk without revealing any confidentiality, some of your greatest successes in your coaching?
Oh, sure. I would say actually turned into a bit of an ad campaign for me too. Like I used to get these emails, or not emails, texts, photographs of someone saying, I got engaged. And my client would be saying that. And I've got dozens and dozens of them now. And that's not the be all and end all. It's sort of a visual metaphor for doing the work and having success. It's like when you know how you're showing up in your relationships, it's not just like that's the be all and end all, but it's who you become in the process. And that's the beauty of coaching. Who you become in the process is what's going to get you the result that you want. And so, yeah, I mean, I've had dozens of clients who've gotten married. I've got some clients who've also been right at the door of divorce, and they've actually rescinded their papers and said, let's give this another shot. So like those types of things are incredibly rewarding. And then there have been couples who've come together and they've had, babies from it too. So again, that's life fulfilling and And then sometimes it's not 100% like intimate relationships. Sometimes it's family relationships. Sometimes I've got clients who heal huge gaping wounds with a parent or both parents sometimes. Or, I've had one, her big breakthrough that led to her getting married. She's actually getting married in a couple of weeks. Her big breakthrough was based on how her boss interacted with her, because again, there was like some parent dynamics and unhappy parent stuff, and she left to her own devices, she probably would have missed out on that opportunity for growth. I helped her to direct and manage it, and then it changed everything. Her boss actually became her mentor. She thought she was trying to push her out, and she basically was just really clear. She's like, you're either gonna, if you want to do this job, I want you to do it this way, and I'll teach you, I'll help you, but you need to decide. And so she put it back in her court, and her first instinct was to shrink and say, I don't want it because she's too tough. And I was like, no, there's opportunity here. And that actually took her to another whole place. And then a short time later, she ended up being the man that she got engaged to. So it's really profound. Like there's no fences in the human personality. So what shows up in one area will oftentimes show up in another area. So for instance, if you don't know your value in an intimate relationship, chances are you don't know your value when your boss talks to you, or maybe when a parent talks to you, or you get into a conflict with a neighbor or what have you. It shows up cross-contextually. And that's my job, is to kind of a little bit of detective work to figure out what's showing up. And basically spotting those areas where there's maybe some work to do, bring a little bit of attention, bring a little focus there, and understand, like, what do they need? What do they want? What prevents, right? Like the one I just talked to today, his challenge was he was getting some pushback from people that he was interested in. And the reason was because he was really, he was agreeable. He was nice. And I think he was getting pushback because he's Mr. Nice Guy. And believe me, I know a little something about this one. I lived it. I used to be Mr. Nice Guy. But the work for him is to learn how to disagree without being disagreeable. The work for him is to be grounded, focused, know who you are, and be able to say, yeah, I love you, and I'm not going to do that. And not be nervous about it or concerned about it or be in fear that it's going to cause them to be abandoned or whatever, right? So there's all these different levels, but like that's my job, is to understand where specifically can I give them the best assistance possible, because it's that area, that Mr. Nice Guy thing. How do we address that? Still keep the great person that he is. And like he said to me, a lot of times when you let people describe themselves to you, I think it was Oprah said, when someone tells you who they are, you got to believe them. But when he was saying something about, he was trying to be nice or something, or I can't remember exactly how he framed it. But like that was it. That was the area where he's getting stuck. And I said, you have to understand that feminine's number one need is she needs to feel safe. And she needs to feel safe. If she can push you around and tell you what to do, she doesn't really want that. She wants you to be able to speak the truth to her. She wants you to love her and care for her and look out for her. She might ask for all kinds of things, but that doesn't mean she wants them. And it's same with kids too. Kids will ask for all kinds of things, but if you give them too much, not only do you spoil that person, mate or child, you also, they don't respect you. They can't.
So what are the biggest turnoffs between men and women?
For women, for men?
Yeah,
for,
I was going to say, I was just about to say, let's start with the biggest turnoffs for a man.
For a man, I would say, and again, this goes back to the, feminine, one, having been wounded in the past and have a bit of a chip on her shoulder. So she doesn't trust men. Like if I ask the question, like, finish the sentence for me, men are blank. And if the words are like jerks, players, idiots, that kind of thing. I know there's some work to do there. And they can feel that because there's that chip on their shoulder. And the thing is, like any ladies that are listening, the one thing I'd love for you to take away is that men actually really do want to be your hero. And if when I say that, that sounds crazy and ludicrous to you, like that's something I hope you'll take a look at. The truth is, men do try hard to please, and they will. The amazing thing about a man is like if he believes he can do something, he will keep going at it, and until it kills him. Like if you tell a man, like I think you can make partner in this firm, but you're going to need to work, 200 hours a week or something, something crazy, and he'll probably do it for a long time until he almost drops dead. But he's got to believe he can do it. And the other side of that is, as soon as he believes it's not going to happen, a man will also not waste effort, and he'll just quit or leave or give up or stop trying. And I think that happens in relationships a lot. As long as he thinks he can win, and his goal is to keep you happy. If he thinks he can do it, he'll keep going. And if he ever gets to the point where I just can't make her happy, he'll quit, or he'll go look for someone that he can. Mm-hmm. And then it goes round and round and round and exacerbates the original wound on the other side. So I would say someone who doesn't see the hero in him is a huge turnoff for men. And for women, I think men that here's the number one area that I see where women make a mistake with men. Again, if you don't understand that they're heroes, you also don't understand their relationship with freedom. The masculine energy would literally die for freedom. Mm-hmm. And what most of the time a woman is asking for is, I want you to give me your freedom. And that's a really tough offer. And the good news is a man will offer his freedom for something better. But there's an order and a syntax to this whole process. And you have to show him something better first. And that's what a lot of times, like I work with my clients on showing up for their original dates in just a really great place. And you're not trying to sit there and say, does he like me? Should I have said that? Is he dating? Are we dating now? Is he going to call me? Are we going to see each other again? What does this mean? Are we dating? Are we married? There's a lot of questions. And again, those questions come from safety. There's an order and a syntax to it. If you have a great life going and you're happy and you're in a great place, he's going to want to see you more. He's going to want to know more about you, assuming he's also open and secure and looking for that. Because again, it's about a complementary fit. It's essentially, it's not a job interview, but basically you want to make sure that the two people who are bringing something that are mutually agreeable to the table and they want similar things, it's got to be a match ultimately. So it's about understanding that once he gets to know you and he sees more than just a random sampling, he may want to continue to get to know you, know more about you, gradually get closer and closer, go exclusive, get engaged, get married. But those things take a little bit of time and estimation. And again, he needs to see. His question is, does she make my world better just being in it? And look, I believe my clients, the answer is a resounding yes, once they do some work on themselves, for sure. But not everyone knows that, and that's where I think they get stuck. So I think they look for emotional certainty too soon. I think that's a strategic thing, and it's just about understanding human motivational psychology. Why people do what they do. What are their driving needs? Is it certainty? Is it significance? Is it love? What runs the show? And so again, that's something I help my clients get really clear on. Like, what's most important to you in life? Like, that's a great question I would ask. As soon as someone tells me the answer to that, I know a lot about them.
Right. I always think it's important to find out what is important to the other person. What are your values? What would you give your kidney for, if you had to? And in other words, what are the most essential parts of you as a human being? And once you understand that, the beginning of any relationship are the 3 C's, right? Chemistry, communication, commitment. Would you talk about that for a moment? Because chemistry is one of the most elusive. I think if we could figure out chemistry, we'd all be billionaires, right? So
Well,
how do
funny you
how do
mention that.
you teach chemistry to somebody?
I'm going to tell you that there's a section in my book actually about the chemistry,
Mm.
and I think it can be, I think it can get us in trouble sometimes. And I'll
Mm-hmm.
tell you why I say that specifically. Chemistry, a lot of times, if you think about what are the symptoms in your body when you're seeing someone and you're like, oh my gosh, he's amazing or she's incredible, and
Oxytocin, right?
yeah, you start getting flooded with the pleasure
Pheromones.
chemicals in your brain,
Right.
and so makes your heart pitter pat a little bit more, makes you a little bit tongue tied, makes you not think straight, makes you nervous, makes you sweat, it increases your heart rate. All these things, these are the exact same symptoms that occur when you see a grizzly bear and you're about to be attacked. So there's a fight or a flight
The
or a
fight or flight,
freeze kind
right?
of thing that happens.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I make the case in the book that a lot of times that attraction is a subconscious knowing that that person has a compatible wound, that there's something in it for you, there's something in it for them, and there's something that you can learn from one another. And I think sometimes we overstate the importance of chemistry, because I look at it like this way too. It's like a fire. You need three elements for a fire, and if you get rid of any one, fire's over. You need a spark, which is a little bit of chemistry. You need an intrigue. You need a curiosity. You need fuel, and you need air.
Mm.
You need something to burn, and you need air to keep it going. And the air is like the commonality, the things that, you know, you see the world, and, you know, we talked about the values. Our values are in alignment. We see the world in similar ways. We have, you know, commonalities in terms of our likes and preferences. I call, you know, references and preferences, similar backgrounds, expectations. And then the fuel is like this ongoing the interest and the desire that you want to continually grow closer. And the thing is, anytime like a flash fire, if there's too much spark, poof, it burns up quickly and it's
Mm.
gone.
That would be infatuation, right? Where
That's infatuation,
it
right?
doesn't have a durability. It's more like you say, more pheromones, more.
Right. It might be based solely on attraction and looks. And
Mm,
look, those are great. Everyone loves that. But again, there's got to be
mm,
something that's sustainable. There's a difference between what is obtainable and what is sustainable.
mm,
And in order to be sustainable, you need to have these other, you know, things in common. You see the world in similar ways, that stuff. And that's not sexy.
mm,
But the sexy stuff is, you know, the stranger across the crowded, you know, room. Uh, that's kind of sexy, and probably a million songs written about it, and movies and all kinds of art reflects it.
mm,
And those occasionally, that's the start of a great love story. Sometimes it's the start of tragedy too, or
mm.
comedy for that matter. It can be a challenge if that's the main basis. So like when I talk about it, I'm not, chemistry is not first. I would say the other C is character. I would say the thing to look for is character.
Mm.
If you want something that is, you know, meant to stand the test of time, you're going to look for character. And I think chemistry can be generated with two people who just really have an incredible appreciation for one another. Of course, there's some attraction. Again, that's the spark. But all that other stuff, I think you can also have chemistry too. I just don't think that's a good enough basis for a long term. It's a flash fire, but I don't think it's a keep you warm for the rest of your life fire. That makes sense?
Yeah, I always say that chemistry is like the Olympic torch, and if you
Mm-hmm.
sustain it, like you just said, it's going to shine brightly and constantly. If you cannot sustain it, it becomes a pilot light at best.
Yeah.
So many relationships start with a smile and a kiss, and they end with a tear. And I don't know, I read that quote recently, and I thought that's very true. You know, that we go through the process, but it is partly what you said is unfolding character, and character is really about shared values.
Right.
And you can't get that in a first or second interaction with somebody. That's something that becomes part of the development, the process over time.
Right.
right?
Getting to know someone. Yeah. Like you can get an idea when you just feel like you're really aligned with someone, but yeah, it
Yeah,
unfolds over time at a
exactly.
deeper level when you start to understand their values, what makes them tick, what do they love, what do they hate, what must they do, what must they never do, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And you start to get to know that person and you start to, I think actually look forward to learning those little nuances about them and admiring them too. Sometimes you don't have to agree with all of them, but it mostly just I think as long as you come from a place of appreciation for your partner,
Mm.
even if you don't fully agree with everything, I think
Well,
appreciation will most of the time carry the day.
relationships go through stages too, right, David?
Oh
And,
yeah,
this is something that I think we're living longer, and that's a good thing, right?
yes,
And but along with that comes the management of enduring relationships that are absolutely going to change as we grow older. And
right.
and so okay, so let's dive into that for a moment because it does relate to intimacy, and I know that that's just one piece of the total pie.
Hmm.
However, let's talk about it for a moment. So, what is your concept about sustainability of intimacy when a relationship is now, 20, 30, 40 years old?
Yeah, Esther Perel is
Oh,
someone
yeah,
who is like amazing. She's amazing. I've gotten a chance to meet her, and I've got her book right here about the state of affairs. And
right.
she's one of the world's leading researchers on intimacy and keeping it going, and also specifically with why do people cheat. And a lot of her work is focused around the idea that the the wounded idea of why someone is cheated, well, they cheated because they just weren't happy, and it's my fault as the person who was cheated on, and I did something or wasn't enough, and they needed to get something from someone else. But she kind of turns it on his head and says, no, it's not really that, and that's an unfortunate way to look at it. The truth of the matter is, most of the time, people that cheat aren't looking to escape to someone else. They're looking to escape themselves and how they feel, whether they
Ooh,
feel,
wow. Wait, let's
yeah,
let's dwell on that for one moment. That's very
yes,
important what you just said.
yeah.
Say that again.
They're trying to escape the way they feel inside. They
Mm.
feel that maybe their life hasn't gone in the direction they wanted, or they don't have the excitement, or there's some sort of a chemical or some sort of an ingredient in what they wanted their life to look like that is missing for whatever reason. And when we personalize it, we say, if you're the aggrieved party, the one who was cheated upon, the tendency is to say that it's my fault, I wasn't enough, or they were looking for someone, and that's unfortunate. And again, that's one of those things where I was talking about in my book. That what a great way for you to have to know your value from a new and more empowered place. So have something like that happen, which would be a wake up call, right? And it
Mm.
would help you hopefully learn that. And so then you would show up in your relationships more empowered, hopefully, if you do that work.
Mm.
But yeah, Esther's work is based on understanding that people. The other thing that she says that is really profound and great, and I give her full credit. She says a lot of times people end up and find themselves in a play that they didn't audition for.
Mm.
And so they're in a relationship, and it started off great. There was maybe that chemistry in the beginning. They just met and they couldn't wait to get together, and it was hot, it was hungry, it was exciting. But then over time, the other thing that is the there's two different things. So for longevity, there is love and faith and support and steadiness. And steadiness is the opposite of zing, is the opposite of
Mm.
spark. So the spark that gets you started is going to leave you wanting when it comes to steadiness, when it comes to um, built for the long haul, right? That's why I say I think chemistry is sometimes overlooked. I think if you start with steadiness, you can have a spark. You can build the spark
Mm.
because it's about asking the question, what does this mean? What do you want? I think you can still have it. And again, I think it comes from a clarity about what you want, what you're committed to having, how you want it to show up, and what do you want your love or your marriage to look like, or your relationship. how do you want to live? How do you want to play this? What are you committed to? What are you willing to do? And maybe it is, actually planning getaways where, you don't just fall into the routine and take one another for granted little by little over time. You actually schedule time away, and you make that other person a priority, and maybe you make sure that even though you're doing something else, but if they the other thing is what's the name? John Gottman talks about if
Oh,
someone makes a bid for you.
oh, he's
And so
great.
a bid is like someone who requests your attention. And if the bid is answered in the affirmative, like if someone says, if your partner comes up behind you and gives you a kiss or something, and you just continue doing what you're doing, continue working on the computer, or
Yeah,
continue doing the dishes, whatever it is you were doing, like
right,
that's a bid that was blocked. But if
right.
the bid is warmly received and reciprocated, if one partner comes over and kisses the other one, and you drop what you're doing and you turn around, and now you reciprocate that. Now that's a relationship that's in a good place, and it's moving. But again, that comes from saying, when my girl reaches for me, I respond, or when my
Mm,
husband reaches for me, I respond, because that's most important. The dishes can wait, or the article I'm reading can wait.
mm.
He or she is my number one priority right now.
It's called inventiveness, right? We're always
Yeah,
reinventing ourselves. And if we're doing that in our lives anyway, why not do it as a couple with the person that
right,
we're connected to, if that's the case, if we're in that situation. But you said some very, very important things just now. I'm going to have to go back and listen over and over again to your teaching, because you really do have this understanding of human behavior, and the fact that we all have to be that newness is part of the excitement, and that's why, of course, when we first meet somebody, the oxytocin is and the other endorphins are so powerful. And to
right.
sustain that over time is I think what you're trying to explain about always making that other person feel that they are the king of the mountain, or the queen, and that's important in any relationship. So because I know we're going to run out of time, would you just spend a couple minutes, or maybe 1 minute, telling us about your book and why you wrote that book? And I know you said you were offering the yeah, I think we have it up on the
Awesome.
screen, right?
There you
Yeah.
go. Yes.
Yeah, so I know you said you wanted to offer something, a goodie for our viewers. So why don't you go ahead and just spend a minute or so on the book?
Yeah, I would love to. Thank you so much. As you can see, the book is called Same Stuff, Different Date. And
Wait,
so it's
wait,
based
say
on that
say
same
say it again, David.
same shit, different date.
Uh-oh, we
It's
have to bleep you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Same stuff, different date. So essentially, it's a takeoff on that saying, same same stuff, different day,
Mm,
meaning it's the same old boring, monotonous over and
mm,
over. Um, Nothing new, breaking it up. It can be mundane and boring. Now, the thing is, I made a date. It's about the people that you date, and what I've done is put together a bunch of exercises that help you understand that there is actually a line that runs through all the people that you've ever dated, been interested in, and it's not happenstance. It's not just this glorious accident. There is something that each one of them was there to teach you. And it's that whole thing where people show up for a reason, a season, a lifetime.
mm,
And then a lot of times those factors look totally different. And so what I do is I help you kind of assess it and see that there's a theme in your relationships, and it's invisible, and it's operating underneath of the radar. And so again, my number one thing is it's about awareness. It's about understanding, like, how do we get here again? What
mm,
is what is influencing the way your relationships are going? If the
mm,
relationships keep having this uncertain um, or a struggle or a challenge, um, there's probably something that they have in common that just looks very different. And what it comes down to, without giving too much away, is it will basically keep attracting um, people who will help bring attention to our unresolved wounds
mm.
from
Is
childhood. And
yeah.
it's from our first 7 years. It's based on Imago. Again, that's Harville Hendrix, another incredible uh, New York Times best-selling author and pretty much brilliant man in the area of relationships, one of the top names in the field, also up there with, John Gray and Dr. Gottman, other people like that. Esther Perel, all these other people that I've mentioned, people that I, really appreciate and study. But this book helps bring that into your attention and awareness. Most people have no idea. I think people tend to be just dumbstruck and have no idea that there's a pattern, that they are a full and total partner in, and it's not just an accident. It's not just happenstance. It's not, there's a reason that they came in, and I help them understand what's the root, what is it that they're looking to heal, and bring attention to it. And then on the other side of that, there's a mechanism for how to heal that, how to get to that place where you do understand you have an awareness of your old patterns, so you'll choose better. Like, for instance, if one of them is, like you said, if you're always looking for the, really the hot, tall, dark, and handsome guy, or the one certain type of woman, and they all sort of end up in a similar way, there's a lesson in that for you too. So, or if it might be, there's all kinds of different things that they can, I don't want to give too much away from it, but it's really powerful to understand it.
That's just enough of a teaser. Now tell us what you're teasing us with.
And the gift is I'm giving even more of a tease. So I'm giving you like the entire first chapter and then some more information in a just free downloadable PDF form. So people can go through it, glance at it, read it. And if it sort of whets your appetite and you want to know more, it's available on Amazon, either in Kindle or in paperback. And I think it's profound. I'm getting some amazing 5-star reviews from people, really just blown away. I've just finished my first book club, and the book's only been out for a couple of months now. So it's still new. It's not one of those books you can thumb through. It's not necessarily a beach book that you can finish, because there's some exercises to do.
Oh, cool. Well, tell us how people, well, first let's talk about your coaching, because that's the other half of your, I know you're very generous offer. So what if people are so inspired that they read your book or they listen to you today and they want to become your client? What is that all about, and how would they contact you?
So my website probably is the best site. The best way to reach me is probably through my website, which is Legendary Love for Life.
LegendaryLoveForLife.com.
Yeah, .com. Yep.
Right.
So they can get me there, and it's got all my social media, all my phone number, my email, everything. So you can reach me any vehicle there.
Okay.
And just reach out. Let me know that you heard me on here, and we'll chat. And I offer all of your listeners and viewers, a free session. We'll just get acquainted, and they'll tell me a little bit about where they are, and I'll give them some free tips and tidbits, or answer any questions from the book. And I'd be honored to do it for your listeners.
Well, that would be wonderful. So if they say Michelle Hughes or Ageless, that's a code. That's a simple way to remember. And they call you or email you and say, I would like to have that complimentary session with you to get a better feeling for each other. And whether this could be a mutually satisfying relationship, as well as they'll get
those are the best kind.
Exactly, as well as they'll get a free PDF of the first chapter. Okay, right. Well, David, is there anything you would like to say that we missed today? Any message that you want to leave our viewers with before we say goodbye?
I think I'll just reiterate, maybe nothing is coming to mind as urgent, but I would just reiterate that, like, we are all worthy of love as we are. And if there is an area where you're really not clear on your value and what you bring to the table and what you offer, that will absolutely block you 100% of the time. Because essentially, when people are interacting with you and looking to get to know you and dating you, my first book is about how to write a really powerful dating profile, and it's because I was a award-winning copywriter in ad agencies before I started doing this work. And the point that I make in that book is that when you're dating and putting out dating profiles, and those it's an advertisement for who you are, and
Mm,
advertisements have certain jobs. You
mm.
need to educate people on who you are. You got to let them know, like, what is the benefit that you bring? Why is their life going to be better because you're in it? And if you don't know the answer to that question, that's a tough question, I will grant you. But if you don't really have an answer or some clarity about that, the way you show up on a date is not going to be very confident. It's not going to be very assured.
Mm.
And it's going to get in the way of how you communicate with people. And I'm not saying to be arrogant. There's a difference, huge difference between arrogant and confident. But it's understanding and appreciating yourself and the unique qualities that you bring to the table. That's one of the things I help my clients do. It's for the same reason, like I used to do, radio and TV commercials, right? And you'll never see a TV commercial for a toothpaste that doesn't say why you should buy their toothpaste. You'll never see a car ad that says who you need to be to drive their car. That's not the way it works. You need to be able to effectively demonstrate and be who it is you want to be.
Well, it's like marketing 101. It's like, who is
Absolutely.
your customer and what are their wants and needs? And then are you providing the goods and services that are going to address and fulfill those needs? So you're absolutely right. We are like a brand. I hate to put it in such
Yep.
maybe, you know, maybe it's a harsh terms, but we are our own brand. And when we put ourselves on the internet, that is what we need to define is what is that brand and what are we bringing of value and how are we
Exactly
going to
right.
make a difference. All right, well, unfortunately our time is up, and time always flies by when you're learning and having fun, right, Dave?
I agree. This has been great. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Well, we're happy to have you, and I think maybe we need to have a chapter 2 here. There's some questions burning questions that I know I have and our viewers have that we didn't get to cover, but we covered a lot of ground today, and I thank you for your time, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
This is Michelle Hughes, and I'm signing off. However, before I do, I just want to say that if you are single, married, in a relationship, this is the type of person that I believe you need to know about, because he's very grounded in human behavior. I don't know how many of you have read some of these online dating coaches, but they're a lot of the times it's fluff. And David is coming from a place of real knowledge, plus his business background in marketing is truly appropriate here, as we have just talked about. So I do believe he's the one in a million that you should know about. That's why I selected him to come on the show, because I've been following him on emails and through newsletter, internet, and so forth. So thank you very much again, David, for being with us, and saying goodbye for Ageless and Timeless. This is Michelle Hughes.